Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Boom. All right. Well, hello and welcome, my friends, to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Friday. It is January the 3rd, and it is our first show. It's our first show of 2025. I feel like this year has been long already, and we just got started. We haven't even kicked into anything yet. Feels crazy. How do we get there? We're going to get into all of it, I promise you. We've got terrorist attacks happening in New Orleans. We've got explosions happening in Las Vegas. The question about whether they're not connected. I don't think they are, just right up front. We've got the media getting excited because Republicans pounced on a girl with a nose ring who tanked her career in one fell swoop. We got that video for you as well. You've probably seen it. And then today we're getting in a new Congress. The 119th Congress comes in. Mike Johnson has got his vote for whether or not he's going to be able to hold on to the speaker's chair. Kind of the mechanics of that. We'll talk about it real quickly. Some of you probably don't care. You should if you want Trump's agenda to get through. So we'll get into that. And I've got Steve Friend, which is always fun. We're going to get into all of those things. Before we do that, let's go ahead and say thanks to people who keep us on the air. And they do indeed. These are our friends over at Blackout Coffee. Folks, let me tell you about a company that's been shaking up the coffee world. Man, I kind of want to shake my coffee here. Hold on, let me put the lid on. Blackout Coffee. It's not your typical run-of-the-mill brew from a corporate giant. I don't know why I needed to shake something. These people share your values. They are bold, unapologetic. They are America first. This month, even into January now, Blackout Coffee is making it easier than ever. You can give a gift of coffee. You can also buy it for yourself. If you didn't get the gift, we are still in the gift-giving season right up until Epiphany. If you guys know the story, January 5th is the last day of Christmas. That's right, Blackout Coffee is running amazing sales. Last month, this month, you can get a bag of their premium roasted coffee. You can get hot cocoa. You can get specialty teas, whatever you're into. We drink all those things here in the Seraphin household, and you'll find something perfect for the folks on your list or the people that you missed. If you're one of those people that shops after the holidays because you forgot, you're still good as long as you're an Orthodox Christian. You can get away with that. Don't forget the gear. They've got mugs, shirts. They've got things that are designed to make a statement with an outstanding looking logo. Great coffee, looking as good as it tastes. You can put on the t-shirt and do it as well. Don't wait. Head over to blackoutcoffee.com/Kyle right now. Blackoutcoffee.com/Kyle. Stock up for the new year. If you like, grab gifts that you didn't get. Give them to people that you forgot about, or maybe you're just showing back up in the office and you can pretend like you had it ready for Christmas anyway. Support a company that stands up for what you guys believe in the way that we do. All right, let's get right into this. It's wild today. Bum, 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 bum. All right, we got Steve Friend. He's going to join me somewhere in the background. He is hiding. And Steve, it's been kind of a wild year, and I thought we were going to get a reprieve. I thought we were going to get a few seconds of breathing room. I actually went out. Can I show you something? Can I show you what this is New Year's Day. I was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take off on New Year's Day. We're going to take off the day afterwards. My family's going to go to church. We're going to have like just a breather. And then we're going to ease into this new year. And then some guy was like, no, I'm going to ease my way into a crowd that's partying on New Year's Eve and going into the next year. So this is how mine started. This is a picture of my kiddos and our neighbor's kiddo from the back, because that's how we're going to roll it. My beautiful little girls out walking on a trail. And I just want to tell you what we were doing. Up you see in the corner there is a it's a hunting blind, right? It's like it would be a tree stand, but it's like a Texas version of it. So it's like a house with air conditioning. It's up on a stand. And then about 60 yards behind me to my right is a feeder, classic Texas style, bait in the animals and then smoke them there because it's not about the sport. It's about the harvesting of the animal. Fine. So I took these little girls out there. We went walking around. This is like on federally protected land. And we're looking at animal tracks. There's pig tracks down there, which is pretty cool. There's animal scat. So we had like a little poop lesson and trail scatology or whatever you do. And you teach your kids like what's going on and what's running around in the world. And then I get back and it's just like, can you get on these interviews? Can you tell us how bad the FBI is? Can you tell us what the hell's happening in New Orleans? Can you tell us why this guy blew up in Vegas? And it's like, oh my God. I just wanted a little bit more of this. Yeah. What about you? How'd your day go? How'd it start?
Well, I mean, we closed out 2025. My wife booked an overnight stay in Kissimmee, Florida, just outside of Orlando. We went to an ice show. So this is me, right? You know, the guy who's cold all the time.
What's
so
an ice
I wore thermal underwear under a cash hoodie and a Iowa-style winter coat that's supposed to be for subarctic temperatures underneath a parka that was given to me. And we went into an enclosure that was 9 degrees to go see some ice sculptures. And I gave the last full measure of devotion for 30 minutes. And then had to reject, I have not thawed out yet. And I got back to my home studio and confronted the same sort of asks from the mainstream media, who kept me hostage for my 90-second hit on Fox News, which amazingly enough, that's where I get the most feedback. My phone blows up if I make an appearance on Fox and do the quick one question, one answer, cut to the pocket catheter commercial.
Is that what they were doing, or was it reverse mortgages?
I guess they ran out of the gold ads.
Dear boomers, the question is this. Why are you watching Fox News? They're shoveling you like so much garbage. They take so many people to give you so little information and so little intelligent commentary. They bring on the dumbest people, except Steve Friend, occasionally. They're bringing on people. Somebody hit me up the other day. One of my buddies was like, yo, bro, like what? Because that's how he talks. He's like, bro, like, what's up with Nikki Parker? Where's she at? And I'm like, what? And I'm like, FBI Barbie? He's like, I think that's my speed. And I'm like, ugh, I lost so much respect for you in one text message. Why would you send me this? Shame on you, my friend. People want to see that. She was known as what? The Wet Rat or something like that. She had a really nasty nickname in Miami. Just useless. Anyway, we do a lot more than that. We're having fun today a little bit. I also wanted to kind of do as kind of a reminder of some of the great things that went on. At the end of the year, we closed out. I did kind of a thank you to the folks that are in our audience. One of the things that many of you may not know, our local subscribers, by the way, know this. But if you don't know, some of the things that our audience has allowed us to do is do things like this. I was able to give away my truck because we were able to make a living doing this, which is pretty incredible. And this is my truck at its new home, cleaned up. It looks way better than when I had it because somebody, we gave it to the right guy and he wanted to make it look good. But just saying, really special to be able to do this podcast. So I want to kick off the year in gratitude before we start hating on our ex-girlfriend, because that's where we're obviously going to go today. There's plenty of that to do. But anyway, for our buddy out there in West Virginia, living in God's country, that's what it looks like, and pretty neat. Let's start with boring stuff first. You good with that, Steve?
All right, man, gotta eat your peas.
All right. You gotta eat your peas, is right. Why Trump has so much riding on the House Speaker vote. This comes from one of my favorite lousy analysts over at CNN. He makes a living doing this. And this is Stephen Collinson's piece talking about Mike Johnson. So I'm going to read a bit, and we're going to kind of talk a little bit about it. Today, the convening of the 119th Congress represents the first day in Washington's new Trump era, with Republicans aiming to produce tangible results as soon as he steps back into the Oval Office. The one-sided nature of today's news coverage is especially transparent, and it's really, really obvious to me that we're not going to see people, even CNN, change their mind or like reverse course. So we're going to have a good year when it comes to covering the tards that are covering the news. The nation's new leaders plan sweeping overhauls of immigration policy, big tax cuts, using complex maneuvers required to overcome Democratic filibusters in the Senate. The moves will demand unity and political dexterity, for which the House GOP is hardly renowned. That's actually a decent sentence and true. What do you think? Mike Johnson, is he holding on to the gavel, or is he going to experience, I don't know, let's call it the Massey effect. There's no other way to call it, right?
As much as I'd love to see the Massey effect, I think getting the King's nod where he got the Trump endorsement is ultimately going to carry the day, and we're going to have Speaker Johnson part due, and he will install the same sort of feckless leadership that we saw the last 2 years, where you get Jim Jordan having weaponization committee hearings where he invites Nikki Parker over Garrett O'Boyle and then issues, 17,000-page report after the election. Or you get my favorite new one, which was James Comer from Kentucky, who led the Oversight Committee and talked about how they were tracking all the Biden money. They were definitely going to get into it. And after they had all the sham hearings, and after he wrote his strongly worded letters, and he appears on all the cable news shows, then he announces that, hey, I published it all in a book. Why don't you buy my book? Thank you very much, Republicans.
It does kind of show you where there's a lot of talk, there's plenty of smoke, there's almost no fire, and when there is fire, it's usually after the fact. Like they burned the shell of the house that was already burned. So go figure. I don't know. I'm a little bit more pragmatic, I feel like, today than I have been. I'm more pragmatic in 2025 than I was the years before, where I was like kind of living in this burn it all down. I guess it is a little bit naive to be able to live in that space where you just go, if you have the luxury of principles, let's call it that, right? The luxury of being principled, then you can do things. We had a discussion on the call-in show last night, and our friend Renzo called in and asked, hey, don't we think that Mike Johnson should get it? Yeah, only in so much as if we're going to get anything done, you need to have it done quickly. Hopefully Republicans kind of get that. It's not my best world. It's not my most excited time, but I also don't have like a lot of faith in man, and I don't need to. So that's the upside. We can get our religion and our principles somewhere else. We can look for politics to just be effective. That would be the best case.
I sort of begun subscribing more to your bullseye philosophy that you got from your preacher, from your priest, where you focus on what's really like within your control at first, and doing that from a policy standpoint or a preferred political outcome standpoint. Like I can worry about the Oversight Committee or the Weaponization Committee, like who's chairing those. Like that there really isn't. It's so far on the outside of the outer rings of the bullseye for me. Like I'm going to be siloed into what I really care the most about, which is seeing a Kash Patel go in like a wrecking ball and destroy a whole bunch of lives as soon as possible. And then if there's anything else outside of that I can concern myself with, then I'll get to it. But there's a whole bunch of filth that needs to be driven out of my ex-girlfriend, your ex-girlfriend, the FBI.
Yeah, so for people to understand, the bullseye theory is essentially that you have a limited scope of influence, and depending on your money, your resources, the amount of power you have, maybe the microphone or the platform that you wield, you can affect more and more rings of a bullseye, but none of us can hit the whole bullseye. The smallest version is like yourself and maybe your immediate family, but that might even be the second ring. And then you have the people that live right next to you, your extended family, and then it extends out to your community and so on. Most of us are never going to be reaching the nation part of the bullseye. And then there's the international part of the world, which I guess is the white ring on the outside that you're not supposed to throw and hit. It's where all the numbers live on the dartboard. You're not supposed to throw it there. There's no points for hitting the world. Maybe that's the real America First position. In any case, yeah, pragmatic. It's like not my most fun thing to do, because I'd love to see America actually behave like America, but we're going to get a fallen world. More on that in a bit. How about this fallen world piece? We kick the year off like this. Ready, Steve? And this is CBS. So the coverage is actually fairly incredible. We like to do the coverage, but we also like to do the meta coverage of what's happening. This is CBS News reporting saying the New Orleans attacker posted videos declaring support for ISIS shortly before the rampage. That's so saith the FBI. That same FBI had some problems kind of getting out of the gate. Let's start with the timeline as we know it. And we went to, luckily, a competent law enforcement agency that does law enforcement and large statewide investigations. Here's the Louisiana State Police Department. I always remember them from watching True Detective. Did you ever see that?
I did. Yeah, that was a good show.
That was like one of the best TV shows that was ever done. Okay, here's people looking good doing this. Tell me, is this the, I can't tell if this is the Louisiana State Police that's giving the speech, or if this is that FBI guy that popped in to remove the DEI hire. Anyway, let's listen to the timeline real quick.
As for a timeline, at this point, investigators believe Jabbar picked up the rented F-150 in Houston, Texas on December 30th. He then drove from Houston to New Orleans on the evening of the 31st, and he posted several videos to an online platform proclaiming his support for ISIS. There were 5 videos posted on Jabbar's Facebook account, which are time-stamped beginning at 1:29 a.m. and the last at 3:02 a.m. In the first video, Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers, end quote. Additionally, he stated he had joined ISIS before this summer. He also provided a will and testament.
There you have it. Is that kind of terroristic?
I'm uncomfortable with saying what is and what isn't terroristic because I don't want the FBI to be the arbiter of right think and wrong think there. I was also taken aback by Chris Rea, Deputy Assistant Director, who was tasked with coming in and doing mop-up duty from the Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Duncan, who had no idea what she was doing, but she really knew how to uptalk and wear a nose ring. But he did the whole thing that the Anthony Weiner strategy. You just really scream and look authoritative, and then people think that you know what you're doing, even though you can't read the note card in front of you.
I thought he did some very nice declarative work there. He obviously changed the pace from the gal that was there previously. Previously, a woman named Aletha Duncan, who was the ASAC, who had an experience investigating healthcare fraud for like a few question mark years.
I think she might have been with the Behavioral Analysis Unit. At least that was what was on her jacket that she was wearing.
So I talked to a retired FBI agent, and the question was, did she work at BAU? And I guess another retired agent had called him earlier and said, we think she was actually being studied by the BAU. They were looking for fools inside law enforcement, and they were profiling her. So that's why she got the jacket. If you guys don't know, the woman who we're going to show you in a second here, Aletha Duncan, black female that people lost their minds about because she had a nose ring. That's not the reason that to be upset. You should be upset that forget about her gender, forget about the color of her skin. None of those things are relevant either. They may be why she got hired. They're probably how she got promoted. That's just the FBI that we live in. But the fact of the matter is she showed up and she did an incompetent job. She said the word pacifically, which I have not used previously, but I will now be using it specifically when I'm talking about the FBI. It's my favorite word. It's like something my 3-year-old might say. She had no business getting involved in this. And the best thing is there actually is a script. You probably know this, Steve, because we could probably do it by heart. The script of what you say if you have to step in front of a camera and talk about an FBI investigation. Do you want to take a stab at what that would sound like? I actually heard it the other day. There was an ASAC training that went out bureau-wide for all ASACs. If confronted with the media in an ongoing investigation, you should say the following things. What do you think that includes?
This is an ongoing investigation. It's very early. We are working with our local and state partners to gather the facts and present them to you as quickly as we can. We want to have a transparent investigation, but at this time, we need to be careful with what we're saying because we don't want to compromise that investigation.
Yes. Okay, a couple other things are going to be added to that. We're also going to say we're interested in any information the public may have. Please bring them forward. You can call the tip line. You can reach out to the local field office. There's a route when we'll look at every lead. And the last one is condolences, and all of our hearts and our prayers go out to the victims.
And make sure to announce your full position at the very outset, too. Who you are.
Yeah. Again, I am this person, and I am in charge of the following things. So that's going to go on my 954. That's literally the entire script. We just did it. That's what you're supposed to say. And people were like, oh, well, I've probably heard that before. Because that's the script. That's what you're supposed to say. Or you could have this lady. She seems pretty brief. She's got it squared away. They're investigating it as terrorism. Specifically as terrorism. Okay? This is the news conference on the day of that got people all riled up. And I'm saying this because we're going to go to a news story that that's covering for Chris Rea. That's why we need somebody. I kid you not, Steve. MSNBC actually wrote an opinion piece to dunk on Kash Patel about this. And I will get there in a second.
First of all, we do know that the city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack. It's all still under investigation. You'll hear more.
You'll hear more, and you're going to hear more right now. Specifically, you're going to hear about where you can and cannot drive in New Orleans. So let's just go to the aforementioned Aletha Duncan. Oh, you know what I just realized? I didn't actually expand this thing out all the way. So let me fix. There we go. All right, ready? Here comes her little clip. This is the gal with the nose ring. Don't lose your minds. She's allowed to have a nose ring. She just shouldn't have a nose ring and be talking in front of the television cameras because in theory, she's a serious FBI agent. That's why she wore like a fleece and she didn't have a suit jacket on.
I have a few words for everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning. My name is Alethea Duncan. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge for FBI New Orleans. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if this is a viable device or not. As Chief Kirkpatrick said, we're asking everyone to stay away from Bourbon Street, specifically from Canal Street to St. Anne. That is my ask. Once again, stay away from Bourbon Street, Canal Street, all the way to St. Anne until we can figure out what is going on. Our goal is to provide you additional information at the 11 a.m. press conference. Thank you so much, and we will be in touch.
Yes, I will.
Do you think that she's got any more promotion potential? Specifically, will she make it to be a special agent in charge of a field office?
No, she just hit her ceiling. She's done. That is a national embarrassment. The worst thing you can commit in the FBI is embarrassing the FBI. She did that to the nth degree possible from that position there. But one way we can actually take this is, and in the most sympathetic way you can present her, because she doesn't have the chops to stand in front of a camera, and don't fault her for that. Most people aren't psychotic enough like you and me to stare into a small circle and be able to carry out a conversation from thousands of miles away from each other. But true. I want to take it to the predicated ideology, because now the FBI is the arbiter of wrongthink. So the FBI actually has a list of predicated ideologies that they say are problematic. And if you subscribe to those beliefs and then engage in violence, that makes it a terrorism. And because Alethea might not specifically know what is on the list of predicated ideologies, she might have said, I don't want to squeeze that toothpaste out of the tube quite yet. So what we do know is that we're going to be investigating the IEDs. So right now we're going to label it that, but we can always go back to label it terrorism later on. That's the larger problem, though. The FBI,
by the way, it's so easy. It's so easy to simply say, all things are on the board. We have not ruled out terrorism. We also haven't ruled it in. There's evidence that's coming in right now. So we will get back to you on the analysis. We appreciate the local partners' help. You can say everything by saying nothing.
Not contradict them.
You don't have to say anything. You don't have to commit to this is not a terrorist event. That makes you sound like an absolute fool. And everybody who's out there was like, oh, you're an absolute fool.
She didn't even have to make an address to the media. She could have just stood there.
So I had this conversation the other. I actually think I did this on maybe Kimberly Guilfoy's, or maybe, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I did a joint operation with the Arlington Police Department. I actually got a letter from the mayor when we did so. We brought in a top 10 fugitive out of Texas. He'd murdered a couple of federal sources. So we were out there doing surveillance, and then we went to the interdiction mode, and we called in the local SWAT team from Arlington, which is right across the river from Washington, D.C. And I was the only FBI person that decided to stick around. Everybody else cashed out and went to breakfast. I'm not even kidding. You know how this goes. So everybody was like, oh, they got him in the house. They pinned him down.
Cracker Barrel time.
I think what happened is the guy had left the house. He had made a run down to a local convenience store. And that's where the pickup happened. And it was local PD that did the pickup. And then they called in the SWAT that was going to come in and clear the house because it was known to be inhabited by MS-13. They had a follow-on warrant to be able to go out there and investigate the area for trafficking and so on. So all of this is all good. That was all going to be in aid of the prosecution of this guy who had multiple murders under his belt. And I'm the only FBI guy there. They got someone from U.S. Marshals because we're talking about a fugitive. They had somebody from HSI because we're talking about an illegal alien fugitive. And then they had local PD, and there might have been somebody else. There might have been someone from ICE and HSI. So they go around the corner, and they're like, SWAT team commander gives his brief. His ATL talks about what they're going to be doing on the containment. The local police guys are talking about how they're going to be holding traffic. It goes over to HSI. They say what they're going to do to run anybody that they find inside of it. Like the thing that you do when you're on an operational on-site brief. They get to me. And I'm FBI. I'm the entire FBI to these people, right? You know how this goes. And they go, hey, FBI, do you got anything? And I said, nope, just tell me where you need me. That's all I had to say. You know why? Because I specifically don't need you to know anything about what I do. I'm just here to help. And you know who doesn't hate people that are here to help? Everybody. Nobody hates that guy.
Everybody in law enforcement, particularly who knows the FBI's reputation for big-timing them and coming in and saying, we're taking over this investigation, Agent Johnson, no relation. Just be there to support the guys who know what they're doing, because by and large, the FBI does not know what the hell it's doing. And to have the actual humility to walk into a room and say hey, where do you need me to help you? Or when they ask you a question to say like, hey, I don't know. I mean, that was one of my best icebreakers ever. There was a allegation or some sort of task force getting set up, a command post for a missing kid, right? And they said, oh, it could be a kidnapping, but she's kind of a problematic teen. We think she probably ran away. And they said, you're the FBI. You're the entire FBI from our perspective. What do we do? And I said, well, on TV, if they get a phone call, they ask for proof of life. So maybe we should do that. And then when they laughed, they realized that, like, yeah, we need to take a step back from the aura of the FBI. Now, if that had ever gotten back to executives in the FBI, I would have been out on my butt way sooner than I actually wound up being. But again, I am problematic for the FBI in certain regards to embarrassing them.
Well, when you have humility, it's confusing to the people that don't know how to have humility. So you're probably the problem. I'll throw you another little kind of interesting moment. I had a phone call yesterday with the supervisory special agent running this situation in Las Vegas. And so I had a journalist reach out to me, said, hey, I'm in possession of some information. It needs to be in the hands of the investigators in Las Vegas. I think it's going to shine a lot of light on it. This is something I got before it all happened. So I believe it's linked to the guy. I'm not saying a whole lot because it's not my information to share. Sure enough. And I said, okay, well, let me reach out to some people. I called a friend. I called a couple of friends. Who do you know that's credible in CT that's out in Denver? Because that's where the guy was out of. That's where his SF group was. And so they reached back and they're like, okay, I got this guy. He promoted, he's going to find me another guy. The classic bureau handoff, like, oh, my friend is no longer in that position, is somewhere else, but knows people still in the office. That person reaches out and says, okay, I'm not in that office. They're actually not handling it here. They're handling it there. Let me give you someone that's there. So I get the handoff three ways, and everybody says, it sounds like these people know what's going on. And I said, great. So I ended up speaking to an SSA out in Las Vegas. And I negotiated the handoff of this information, this evidence. And in doing so, the best moment for me, the most bureau thing, and they probably won't even hear this, which is even funnier. He's like, so wait, like, who are you? Are you an agent, or are you like a source? Like, who are you? And I was like, oh yeah, I used to, because he's probably like, how in the hell did this guy get my cell phone number? Because I'm direct dialing the person that's doing a pretty high profile case right now. And I'm just calling him first thing in the morning, on the second day of the year with information that they don't have. And he was like, and there's another guy on the phone because they're obviously sitting there at a conference table. I could hear there was another guy that piped in later. And he was like, so wait, like the person that you're handing us, is that our source? Is that your source? And I'm like, no, it's just a guy. It's just a journo. Like he's just has a social media following that people reach out to him. And if he's like me, which he is, and he's like you, we get a lot of mental illness in our DMs. People reach out and say crazy stuff all the time. And you just go like, I can't do anything about that. Like, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with the anti-gravity drive propulsion unit that's inside of your head that is put there by the Iranian government when they were working with the Chinese, or whatever the hell crazy stuff they say to you. And you just move on. But if that person decides to like blow up the truck they're in later, it suddenly becomes pretty relevant and you'd want to hand it off. And you're like, good Lord. Anyway, there was some very specific, I guess specifically, this person mentioned some things that were of note and actually indicate a little bit of forethought to what happened. So we shared this stuff on, but they had no idea who I was. The guy's like, so we're like, where are you from? Like, what do you, I'm like, dude, I do a podcast. I used to be an agent in Las Cruces, but I used to work at a WFO for 5 years. And I spent 3 years doing, CT on SOG and 2 years doing CI. Like I have credentials enough to talk to you. I found your name without any trying. And I know more about what's happening in the world than you do.
This reminds me of the agent that had no idea about the Hunter Biden laptop that you've talked about.
It's the same
before.
Story. It's people who work in national security. It's people who have a nationally focused job, an agency that theoretically focuses on the whole country, and they don't know anything about what's going on. So our audience specifically is more informed than most FBI agents. And I'm just telling you, folks, if you're listening to this program, it means you care enough to know more than the average federal agent. And that is specifically a problem. I can't stop saying it. It's my favorite word. I'm going to stop right now. Let me promote our sponsors that keep us on the air here. People like Patriot Coolers. And this one is actually the new wood grain one. So Steve, if you don't have this, covet it if you must. Here we go. Folks, PatriotCoolers.com, longest serving sponsor of the Kyle Seraphin Show. They got in right away on ground zero. We're really appreciative. This is my newest. I actually got it at the end of the year. It is a wood grain. You can see how lovely it matches the background. It also matches the background of the truck that I had to buy because I gave my truck away. All of that stuff is thanks because of you guys. You guys are continuing to buy their products. If you're in the market, check them out. If you're not in the market, don't go into debt buying things because Kyle Seraphin is telling you about it. Just, When you're in the market for a gift, when you want something that is patriotic, that anybody can use, then you can go over to patriotcoolers.com, use the promo code KYLE. Again, KYLE saves you 10%. So there's a little bit of a discount. You're supporting a good company that's out of Texas, America. They are down the street from us. They ship quickly from the U.S. Their stuff works. It is superior to many other things, including like Yetis. There's coffee in here right now, and I just turned it upside down without any fear. I just checked to make sure the snap is in. It's a screw-on lid, which is better than their previous designs. I think this is version 3.0. I've got 1.0s, I've got 2.0s, I now have the 3.0, and I became covetous of this one when I saw my parents using it, and they came and visited, because everybody in my family has Patriot coolers. If you guys want one, again, show description for the link. You can also find the Kyle Seraphin Show if you want one that is like engraved with our badge and our upside down flag and that kind of thing. Very easy for you to get. Check them out, and we appreciate them being such a good sponsor and being so cool. Steve, we got more stuff. We've got more. We're not done yet. I need to tell you.
Specifically, more stuff. I'm really looking forward to it.
Here it is. The FBI made the right decision in declaring this a predicated ideology. I kid you not. The FBI's terrorism designation in New Orleans is much more than a symbolic act. Is it, in fact, much more than a symbolic act? This is Babs, what's her name? Babs McLean, I think? Yeah, McQuaid. She's horrible.
How was that a real name?
Listen, I got to read you how it got done, because this woman clearly has, like, she's a legal correspondent. She's a columnist over there. If my memory serves, she's actually a law professor, but it might be, I might have some names mixed up. The FBI's quick decision on Wednesday to investigate New Orleans, the one where a vehicle rammed into a Bourbon Street crowd as a terrorist attack, demonstrates the importance of an FBI director with knowledge, experience, and judgment. I shit you not, Steve friend. This woman made a dunk pass on Kash Patel, who has not worked there, who has more experience in this stuff, working on the CT and the intel side, working over at DOD than Chris Wray, and said Chris Wray, the FBI's director, made a decision after a man. He made the decision. Chris Wray did.
Chris Wray specifically made the decision that we had to make this into a counterterrorism case.
Yeah. Is that believable to anyone?
Not if you have a functional prefrontal cortex. I mean, you just have to look at the jet for the FBI, the director jet, and see that it's being housed in Manassas right now because Christopher Wray isn't on scene. He is really not involved. And you don't need the director to be involved in the investigative actions here. And this is beyond a ground ball. Like, this is a slow dribbler that could be fielded by a T-baller. The guy had an ISIS flag and drove a truck into a large group of people for a mass casualty event and got into a shootout with police.
Hold on. She's impressed. She's going to cover that too. So here it is. Authorities reported that a black flag, this is crack investigative work that Twitter did also. A black flag was tied to the hitch. It wasn't tied. It was in a bumper. It was in a bumper device.
Yeah, specific details matter, Babs.
Okay, but Babs doesn't care. The flag appears to be affiliated with the terrorist organization ISIS, giving the FBI a factual basis. It's really good when you use important words, specifically legal-sounding words, to investigate the crime as a terrorist act. Under federal law, an international or domestic act of terrorism is defined, here it is, as an unlawful act dangerous to human life that is intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population or government. What were they specifically trying to intimidate or coerce? Do you have any idea? Because I don't know what his demands were when he went bumping in there. I'm sure it was a terrorist attack. It's very interesting to me that she's just made sure to highlight the federal law, which actually added zero to these stories. I don't understand how people get there. It doesn't matter whether it's Fox or MSNBC. Why are you people reading this stuff? Other than I think it's funny. Why are you reading it, Steve?
Well, I'm not reading it, which is why they probably don't invite me on very often. I'm there for the 90 seconds. I did drop a human Roomba reference when I was there, and I almost made Kayleigh McEnany lose her composure. So I'm pretty glad with myself for that one. But when it comes to making the call on whether or not...
She videotaped the screen, full boomer style. She videotaped the screen of you talking. Not that I expect my mom to know how to pull a video clip off like social media or anything, but she's got Steve Friend on her cell phone on the TV.
Hi, Miss Seraphin. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
She said it to my wife. Well done. Sorry, I derailed you.
All right, look, the declaration that this is a terrorist attack. Let's just go over my larger concern. We covered down on this at length yesterday on the American Radicals podcast. There's the conversation that's happening currently because it's January 3rd, 2025, but people think it's September 12th, 2001.
Yeah.
The American right is going to say the FBI has been looking at moms at school board meetings and grandmas who went to the Capitol on January 6th. And as a result of that, they took their eye off the ball and they let this terrorist attack happen. You get partial credit when you say that the FBI should not be the arbiter of wrong think and should not be going after moms at school board meetings and people who went to the Capitol on J6. Period.
Yes.
There's not a comma where he says, and going after other people. And I'm not saying that this guy is not evil. I know he's evil. I know communists are evil.
Yep.
The problem is that the FBI is Skynet from Terminator. And then when Skynet became self-aware, it is code. It's an algorithm. It's not good or bad. It just is. And Skynet realized that the threat to Skynet were the people who said, "Ooh, we better unplug it." So it went to war against the people. The FBI is Skynet. And it says that where is the most profit for us? Is it in going after legitimate threats here? Or is it in going after people who are stopping the growth of the bureaucracy? We're at the bottom of the slippery slope now that we were arguing about in 2001, and we're just going to re-rack and do it all over again because people were put for a decision for all their chips. They said, do you want liberty or do you want security? And people said, we want security. And government is incapable of doing that, even if it is a despotic, tyrannical source of government. And you're never going to get security. So you might as well opt for freedom. It's a logical decision. But those who choose security over freedom wind up with neither and deserve neither.
Here's the replay of that very quickly for people. The Skynet reference, which Steve dropped on me on the phone yesterday. I was like, this is perfect. This is something that people need to understand. The purpose of Skynet immediately became, the minute it was aware, the purpose of Skynet is to protect Skynet. The purpose of federal bureaucracy is to protect federal bureaucracy. The threat to Skynet is anybody who could turn it off. The threat to the federal bureaucracy is anybody who can turn it off. It's the perfect one-to-one reference. It was a great drop, and it's a really, really insightful comment to connect these dots. And so for those of you who are out there wondering, why would the FBI turn around and target? We have proof of concept. We know that September 12th, we learned the wrong lessons from 9/11. You are now going to be put to a decision for your chips again. Steve, what is the warning the FBI might issue in the wake of this terrorist attack? What would they worry about if you had to just randomly guess what the bulletins coming out to law enforcement are?
Follow-on attacks by white supremacists going after brown people.
That's like creative writing time. No, they were worried about copycats, people who want to look like the same thing. How many times have we heard about possible copycats?
Every single time, which is why they always talk about the dates being significant, and they're only significant to the intelligence analysts writing the bulletins, not the terrorists.
That's how they get paid, though. So don't be mad at the intel. Don't hate the player in this case. You can hate the game. The game is that intel analysts in the FBI, folks, you may not know this, they get paid to write term papers for a living. And that term paper, if it says things like warning of copycat danger, they might even get that published nationally. Here you have an article written by the good folks over at ABC, warning of said copycat. No evidence that copycats have happened, but they issued a joint intelligence bulletin between DHS and the FBI, warning the 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the United States that someone might try to emulate this attack. Can I tell you where this attack came from? Because a lot of people probably don't know.
Sure.
Do you know the origins of it? Like, did this guy, people are like, well, he used an EV. He did this thing. He used a truck. Do you want to know how far back this idea goes? At least this far back for ISIS specifically? Take a guess on the timeline.
For ISIS specifically, ISIS really has only been a thing for like 10 years. So
Specifically, ISIS actually recommended this in 2010. Kudos to a listener, I think, and also a follower over on True Social that shared this little highlight. This is from the second episode of Inspire magazine, the propaganda piece that is put out by ISIS. And it shows a picture of the F-350 pickup truck, the ultimate mowing machine. I think their original title when they were doing these, I think the F-350 in 2010 was being marketed as the ultimate towing machine because it is a really good, civilian model tow truck, commercial vehicle status kind of thing. And I actually now have a 250 that can do similar things. So probably tows more than that. It specifically is designed to do lots of towing. The ultimate mowing machine is a page 53 of the second edition, from what I understand, of the ISIS Inspire magazine. We used to have a copy of these things, by the way, in my field offices. You could look through them. They're really nicely done. They're perfectly laid out propaganda. This is not a new concept. This is a 14 to 15-year-old idea of using a pickup truck to mow through a crowd.
But it's not that far-fetched. I mean, I think most people could come to that conclusion that that's a thing you could do. I mean, that's why I've always said that the premise of having a TSA at the airport just creates another opportunity for terrorists. I mean, particularly specifically around the holidays, when there's thousands of people trying to get through those TSA agents who are making sure they only have 3.5 ounces of hairspray. That's a logjam of people that a terrorist could just blow themselves up and kill all of the people before they've even had an opportunity to screen them and fail to catch the bomb that's on their chest.
It's totally true. Anytime you mass people up, it doesn't matter if it's on a freeway, in traffic. It doesn't matter if it's a line outside of a bank when people are masked up and they're not paying attention to things. Masked, M-A-S-S-E-D, masked. Yeah, you're specifically in a potential danger zone right there. That's just how it works. And running a truck into it is logical. The fact of the matter is this goes back a long ways. So the idea of a copycat, it's not a copycat. This is like a really delayed action. And we've seen this thing happen overseas. We've seen it happen domestically as well. Anyway, I just think it's incredible that that's the brilliance of Chris Wray's FBI, who specifically decided to himself, and something that Kash Patel could not have figured out how to do.
No, he didn't have the courage of his convictions to make the call that the guy waving a black flag. Specifically, it's a black flag, not a ISIS flag.
I feel like I should change the name of this episode. I think I should specifically name it something that's a little bit more appropriate to the word that we've said a million times. I'm very sorry that we are kicking the year off this way. I can't help but just laugh at the clown. And here's the problem. If you laugh at the clown, you're the problem, Steve friend. Here is the Republicans' pounce. I kid you not. It was in the wings, and there it is. MAGA trolls are outraged by FBI agents' nose piercing during New Orleans terror attack press briefing. According to FBI guidelines, jewelry and piercings for agents must be small, simple in design, and not present a safety hazard. I've never even seen that. I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. There is no dress and appearance standard for FBI agents after 2010.
And let me just throw this out there, the 30 by 30 initiative that I've been hammering about to get to 30% female representation in management of law enforcement by 2030. It argues that grooming standards are against women. So even if there is a policy there, I'm sure that's gone out the window since they've all signed up for the 30 by 30. But even going back to the Skynet reference, because the threats to Skynet are people who are small government or people who are on the inside of Skynet, i.e. the FBI, who make it look bad, which is why ASAC Duncan, her career is over now. She's made them look bad, and they have to do away with her. Her career has hit it's not a glass ceiling. It's a multi-level cement ceiling.
She is, yeah, like you say, it's the only thing that you can be completely guilty of, and there is no appeals process. You walked out in front of a big camera. You embarrassed everybody by wearing a fleece hoodie. You weren't wearing a jacket. You said dumb things that you shouldn't have said. You didn't say the smart things that you should have said. And you wore a nose ring and you made everybody look at it. You can wear a nose ring in the FBI. Like, nobody cares. I knew several women, actually several black women, that wore nose rings. It's totally it's not outside the range of possibility that you could do that. And there's certainly no guide. In the same way that when I got to the first field office in Washington Field, if you look at the same guidelines that people are quoting, by the way, it's all like the MAGA right influencer crowd on Twitter that don't know what the hell they're talking about. And they're like, it says it right here. Trainees must not wear, these things and no facial piercings.
You mean the trainees that are doing defensive tactics and can theoretically have their nostril ripped off? Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. The trainees.
You couldn't wear a wedding ring either.
Correct. Well, you specifically could wear one that was made out of this.
Silicone?
Like you wear a silicone one. The best part for me is that they said all this stuff, and I'm like, it's right in the guidelines that it's for trainees. I had people arguing with me yesterday, and they were like, well, the training environment sets up what happens in the field. And I'm like, oh, is that what you experienced when you were an FBI agent? What are you talking about? Like, go back to Fox News and get your bad information. I'm just telling you what's true. I'm not telling you whether I think it should be true. I don't think women should wear nose rings if they're in the FBI. I think you and I would agree on that. I think that modest or no jewelry at all is totally appropriate if you want to be in a law enforcement space. But that's not what happened. So I don't get to decide what the facts are. The facts are what they are. Your opinion about them is sort of irrelevant because you don't have any say in it. You need to go out there and specifically talk to Chris Wray if you want him to fix that, because he actually could change that policy. He's not going to. He's too brave and hanging out in Fulton County, I'm sure, in Atlanta, and doing the thing that he does because it's still the Christmas break. By the way, that's why we got that lady there. It was skeleton crew time.
January 1st, the special agent in charge wasn't there. And look, I'm with you on, I don't think that, well, actually, I'm probably more of an extremist than you are. I probably have a predicated ideology. I don't think women should wear nose rings, period. Actually, I don't think women should be in law enforcement, period.
It's
That's
true.
just where I am. I guess I'm probably on the far right-hand side of the bell curve. They probably should open up an assessment, at least, of me, which they can, thanks to the Patriot Act. Thank you very much, Republicans, for passing that 24 years ago. They can open up an assessment on me for an articulable purpose. No probable cause, no reasonable suspicion of crime. But let's go back to that mentality. Let's re-rack that, because we need to give ultimate authority to Skynet, which will never, ever turn back against us. We're at the bottom of the slippery slope. We're at the end of the Niemöller poem, the one from the Holocaust Memorial.
That's right.
And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. We've just lived it the last 4 years. And yet again, the boomer Fox News watching audience is going to say, well, we need to have a healthy balance. There needs to be some arbiters here of saying, what are problematic thoughts? And again, I am not defending the guy who mowed down a crowd of people and said Allahu Akbar. I don't defend communists. They're fundamentally evil beliefs. What I'm telling you is that for all intents and purposes, for all pacific reasons here, you cannot empower government to do that, to be the arbiter of right think and wrong think, even if wrong think is as clear as day, wrong and evil. You can't do it because it is Skynet and it will go where its bread is buttered. And that is going to be going against people who believe that Skynet should be unplugged.
I think that you might have set off a war in the chat for people that think that women need to be in law enforcement. Steve's allowed to have his opinion. This is something that should be openly debated. They should be defended on their merits. So you don't just specifically have an idea with no defense of it. There needs to be points behind it. In any case, let me tell you something which there is no merit. This is the guy who wrote the story about the MAGA trolls, the Republicans' pound story. I don't know why I found this fascinating, but occasionally I do this, and you guys saw it on the screen a minute ago. This is Mike Bettigan. One of the most beta male things I've ever seen. And just to add to how beta he is, he's British. And he traveled across the pond. He reports for The Independent, which is sort of ironic because they're not independent. They are dependent on a leftist thing. That's a picture of him. His story is, and you cannot make that. I kid you not. You cannot make this up. I'm going to lean forward and read it. Mike Bettigan is the senior U.S. reporter. What is he, like 30, maybe? He's the senior U.S. reporter covering social justice issues, crime, politics, and the climate. And his reporting includes coverage of both Republican and Democratic national committees in 2024, strange internet trends, and Taylor Swift. This is an actual job description of a guy who does apparently that for a living, which is truly incredible. I don't know how else to explain it. And by looking at him, I can tell that his stories are about climate change and Taylor Swift. I would guess that 10 times out of 10. And probably many of you would too. I got to tell you, that's just the fun part about being sort of in the space where you're looking at it. When you're looking at it as like a meta-analysis piece. Let's do another quick thing, kind of dunk on journalists because I think it's fun. Steve Friend, how many crime scenes have you visited, assessed? How many crime scenes have you served search warrants on, if you had to estimate, between your local law enforcement and your FBI time?
1,000.
You think? 1,000?
I mean, I would put it between 750 and 1,000. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. How many of them have you allowed a reporter in 24 hours after the time?
I would have to
Let's
say
call it
how
a
many,
homicide.
It would
Let's
be
say
one
it's a
hand of the
homicide.
times that I didn't allow a reporter in, particularly ones that report on the climate, right? No, you don't allow the media in. That's why they make this bright yellow tape that says crime scene, and there's supposed to be somebody standing there who has a log of who was able to enter and exit. And when you're done, you secure the property, and it goes over to the person's next of kin if they're deceased, or back to the person to control their own property. You don't allow journalists to come in to look at your crime scene.
What if she's kind of pretty and she has very tight-fitting yoga pants on?
Are they white yoga pants?
No, they're not. They are dark
Still
colored.
hard no.
Okay. Well, that just happened. So let's just do this for a little bit. Let's just show a lady walking in, apparently, to the home of the guy who mowed down people in New Orleans. You cannot make this stuff up. This is specifically how competent Chris Wray's FBI directorship has been.
We are here inside the New Orleans terrorist home. You can see that it's been clearly destroyed, the door at least, from the FBI raid yesterday. But if we walk through the home, we see some signs of what he was up to. He had this work area here, lots of different chemicals splayed around, and different electronics. This is, again, a work setup. Left.
Okay, rate the yoga pants for me real quick. 1 to 10.
7 out of 10. I mean, if she was really going for it, she could be white, and they would have been set off better with some Uggs boots.
Do you think that she is allowed to wear a nose ring on camera, or is that inappropriate?
Specifically, no, not allowed to do that. They have high grooming standards at the New York Post.
Is that where she's from? New York Post?
Yes.
Okay. What are we seeing here? First of all, that's the nicest crime scene. I've been on a couple of white collar search warrants that were about that nice. I've been into a couple of offices that look that good, but it's actually well lit in a better way. Describe this on a scale of, let's say, 1 equals the walls have cockroaches and the floors have holes in it, and 10 equals, I don't know, white collar mansion. Where does this fall in your sort of 1 to 10 scale?
I put it around an 8. I mean, like it almost looks like, you spend half an afternoon cleaning up, and it would be spick and span, like ready for the realtor to come in and stage it to take photos.
I think so. Let's play a little bit more of it. Here we go.
Seats, just very unkempt in here.
Very unkempt.
If you go over here.
Hold on.
Specifically unkempt.
It's specifically unkempt. She's never been to a crime scene before. Maybe because no one's ever done this. I have literally never heard of anyone doing this. I don't like that word, but I cannot think of a single instance where somebody 24 hours after a terrorist event was able to do a walkthrough, and we're going to see the FBI's warrant and property receipt, which is standard paperwork, by the way.
And they left evidence? I found chemicals that are just laying out here. They could be explosives. And
not only that, they've got the workbench. They've got the magnifying glass. I mean, look, what's the stupidest thing you've ever returned? Because, okay, so folks, you don't understand. When you do a process a crime scene, there's not just Steve Friend or Kyle Seraphin, the case agent, working on the case. There's also like evidence technicians, people that know nothing about what you're investigating, people who've never investigated that kind of crime before. And they take things that you cannot fathom that are ending up in evidence, and you have to return it in order to close out the case. Tell me the dumbest, I'm going to tell you next, but tell me the dumbest thing that you ever returned that was seized on a search warrant.
I mean, it was relevant, and I thought returning it was really dumb. That was the bloody sheet and the knife that were used to murder that person's next of kin. I thought that was probably inappropriate for us to give back to them.
Okay. That's pretty dumb.
Yeah, and then also there was a comforter that was seized in a search warrant for child pornography, where they just went to get the devices and they pulled the comforter off the bed. So that's kind of a waste of space.
Potentially biological material, but that's what they stole it from. Okay, so that's the dumbest. I have 2. They came from the same case. I returned a bag of safety glass that came from the windshield of a 1986 XJ Jeep Cherokee. And then I also returned the headliner for said Jeep Cherokee, which was huge. And it was in a box that fit like the size of like a 48-inch poster. And I brought that to the guy. And the only reason that he didn't tell me to go F off is because his PO was standing there when I returned it to him. And I said, I've got a bunch of stuff I've got to return. And normally I would make the offer if it was like a victim's family. I'd be like, hey, I can just throw this in the dumpster on the way out. I just need you to sign for it. And I'm happy to dispose of it for you. But I didn't feel that sort of thing. It was really smoky and cigarettes in the office, in his little living room. So I rolled in. He's talking to the PO. He's smoking a cigarette in this crappy trailer. And I'm like, hey, bro, I got all your stuff, and I just need you to sign for it, and then I'll give it to you. And so I gave him a bag of broken window glass in a brown paper bag, and I gave him a huge poster-sized box with the headliner, and it was marked Jeep headliner on it. And he was like, what is this? And I was like, it's the headliner from the Jeep that you killed those people in, because he ran over some people when he was drunk. And he's like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I'm like, dude, you can throw it in the front yard for all I care. I don't know. I have to give it to you. And you know what? While I was there, he threw it in the front yard, because this is an Indian reservation. That's what they did. Standard stuff. I'm just saying, I've never seen the crime scene so clean. This lady is walking through legit evidence. We're going to play more.
Actually you can see the Department of Justice documents here, the search warrant, and the property that they recorded here, which seems to be a lot of chemicals. Again, just
it's
left
typed
in disarray.
It's
There's a bedroom
freaking
back
tight.
here, and his.
Explain what that means to you.
So there's an inventory that you give them. You put the copy of the search warrant so they know that you were not in violation of their Fourth Amendment rights. Here's a copy of a duly signed search warrant from the judge. And then here is an inventory list of what we seized as evidence there,
I'm gonna let
which
it keep
you
playing.
write down as you're taking it, handwritten. You don't have a keyboard available there.
It's carbon copy. It's press hard 3 copies
it's
and
the
hand and leave
triplicate.
one there. There's the Quran. It's open to a very
specific
important
passage about martyrdom.
I'm sure
that
of it.
They didn't take you didn't take the Quran. Would you just take photos of it? But you have a typed list.
He's got a dartboard. We talked about a dartboard earlier. What is going on here?
Are we becoming radicalized?
I'm just saying, like, I don't get deep into there's the entire that workstation is coming with me probably.
Yes, which was always a problem.
Angle, it's really hard to do that. What is happening here? There's his bins. They left the bins. These are empty bins. You're not taking those and sweeping them for residue.
And the FBI does a really good job of cleaning
his
up.
Scarf, his head scarf.
Yep.
Are you kidding me?
They seized more from J6 misdemeanor crimes.
They did. I'm just blown away. And so this is why people end up radicalized. And this lady walking through this is just killing me. It's absolutely killing me. I cannot believe that it's somebody dressed this way to go and walk through it. This is why people believe that there are conspiracies happening. That's a great freeze frame to end it on. That's not a very flattering thing. Those nails are great though. Listen, I have never seen anything like that in a crime scene. I've been to several CT search warrants. They're not the most common in the world. They don't happen all that often. Usually you catch them in the open. But no wonder people think that the FBI is staging things and that these are a setup and that this is somehow like a psyop, because that looks crazy to me and it looks crazy to you. And, you know, I've been on dozens and dozens of search warrants. I haven't been on 1,000.
They are scrambling
200
right now. They do not know what to do because of the allegations of the fact that they've not been transparent with the American people. So now they're going to try to overcorrect and be as ridiculously transparent as possible and think like, well, I'll definitely not get fired by Kash Patel if I allow a New York Post reporter in here, because New York Post is kind of right-leaning some of the time, and allow her to just come through. And also, we didn't secure the property, by the way. It was just open back door, which the FBI doesn't do at all. I don't know if this is even a legitimate thing here. I mean, it could be completely staged at this point. I have no faith that this investigation is being carried forward in an honest and fair fashion.
Everybody in the chat is saying it's staged. We don't know that. It totally could be real. That's the world we're living in right now. Here's another thing that really just happened, because we just had a terrorist attack. We had a guy in Vegas. We'll talk more about Vegas maybe on Monday. I don't know yet, and I think there's going to be some information. Keep an eye on Sean Ryan's show. Let's just throw that out there. May or may not have something coming up out of that. Steve, the January 6 people.
Oh, yeah. They're worried about transparency now.
Listen, we gave Liz Cheney got herself a medal for being the Presidential Civilian Honor or whatever the heck it is. And Republicans aren't done rewriting the history of January 6th. And that's why we just got a release of the January 6th stuff. The FBI just suddenly dumped out like video, which by the way shows nothing new, absolutely nothing new. Showed it to Steve Baker and he was just like, dude, what are they doing? And so now we know the person was 5'7", plus or minus an inch.
Thank you for nothing at all. I mean, you think that this is going to save your job as a senior executive to share this out there?
They had this on January 7th. For whatever it's worth, they had this drawing. Like this much detail was available on January 7th.
But
I 100%.
It's national security. We definitely couldn't use all the resources available. And we couldn't deploy agents like we were deploying them to New Orleans from other field offices, because apparently New Orleans doesn't have the manpower to investigate a case where the guy's already dead. But we're just going to do the default government thing and send bodies so we can say we sent bodies, and they're just going to sit there and collect per diem and hotel points and then be paired up with someone from New Orleans to duplicate their work anyway. So Christopher Wray can stand up at a congressional hearing or a news conference and say, we're sending all available resources here. But we couldn't mobilize anything to go get the only potential bad actor, I mean, as far as a terrorist activity went on January 6th, a guy who planted a weapon of mass destruction and threatened the life of the vice president-elect But we're going to call off the surveillance teams, which have a person of interest within arm's grasp that they could actually get to. No, we have more important things. We've got to answer these guardian leads at this point. These people believe that they're going to just overcorrect, be overly transparent, and it's going to save their hides and their skins because a new administration is going to come in, a new FBI director is going to come in, and they're hoping to do what the FBI always does, and that is pivot to make whoever is in charge happy. That's where their bread is buttered. The politics of the Bureau, I mean, they're way more communist than they've ever been. But at the end of the day, that you ask them to jump, they say how high because their funding and their pay and their benefits are all attached to that. If the instruction is go get the Vietnam War draft dodger, go get him. Go get MLK, yep, go get him. Go get Randy Weaver, go get him. Go get the Liberty City 7, yep, go get him. Go get moms of school readings, yep, go get them. Whatever it's going to take for them to survive, because Skynet is not good or bad. It just is. Self-preservation is its prime directive.
That might be the most critical screed to kick off 2025 that we have. I have a button that explains the way that I'm feeling right now, and many of you.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
How are we the only ones that saw this kind of stuff? How are we the only ones in the Bureau that are screaming about it? Actually, I had people that told me that they had former FBI agents calling in and current FBI agents that were like, they saw the lady with the nose ring and they were like, just shut it down. Just put us out of our misery. We got to just kill it. We got to kill this animal before it gets out. It's too dangerous to be alive. It's too stupid. That's pretty funny. That's pretty lovable. What do you got coming up on the American Radicals podcast? We'll shut it down for the day. What do you got coming up on Saturday?
So tomorrow, everybody should join us at 10:30. Going to stream live on Rumble, rumble.com/amradpod. Garrett and I did a deep dive yesterday on the New Orleans event, but we're going back to standard fare. Turning the page is the theme of the day on some of the crazy things that are going on in the waning days of the Biden administration, the DEI, and sending more and more money to Ukraine. It's time to turn the page on that and be a little bit more optimistic. Some positive changes are in effect.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Steve Friend. If you are new to the program, if you have joined us for the first time in 2025, Steve Friend, FBI whistleblower, author, and extraordinary commentator about Skynet and other things that I remember from being a child. You can follow him at Real Steve Friend over on Twitter, which you should do. And the American Radicals podcast is at AmRadPod. You can find it over there on X too. Thanks so much for being there. Thanks for kicking off the year. What a good way to kick off the year, Mr. Friend. It's going to be an interesting one. I think this one's going to get Western.
You got it. Happy New Year.
All right, buddy. Happy New Year. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the program today. I would not leave you without a palate cleanser, though. I do have something, and here it is. This is obviously AI saying it. It's talking about Isaiah 6:8. You guys know that's one of my favorite Bible verses. It's a reminder of how to do things right. This gets me a little bit teary-eyed, actually, so I'm going to stay off the screen. Enjoy this. It's a call to action for all of you who are wondering, am I capable? Am I able to rise to the challenge? The final message in it is useful to me.
Isaiah 68. Then I heard the voice of the Lord say,
Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?
Then I said, Here am I. Send me. We need to hear God's voice calling you. No matter what task it is, stand up like a warrior for God. Don't be afraid, but be brave like David. Be courageous like Daniel. Be strong like Samson. Be a leader like Moses. God does not call the qualified, but He qualifies the call. If you're called, you're qualified, my friend. So don't be afraid. Because if God puts you up to the task, just know that He's going to be walking with you through the task. Put on that full armor of God and push forward, my friend. Fear not.
And there it is. It's good advice. Go out there, answer the call. Remember that He qualifies the called. I think that's true. God bless all of you. Look forward to seeing you again after the weekend. And if you are new to the program or if you are paying attention, you know we're about to start dropping videos, interviews on the weekends. So tune your notifications on. Make sure you guys have liked and shared and subscribed to the channel and so on. You will get a notification on Sunday that we have an interview for you. We're starting with J6ers for January of 2025. We're going to do 4 profiles of January 6ers, people that I wanted to talk to. You will get a very long conversation, profiles of the men who are the men, and they are not just a thing that happened for 30 minutes in the Capitol on one day of the year of their life. There's so much more to them, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy that. If you're part of our locals team, if you're one of the subscribers over there, you'll get it a day early. So I got work to do. It's back to the editing board for me. God bless you. See you again either on Sunday or I'll see you on Monday morning.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.